You ready to go? So I'm trying to train hard and heavy now. Yeah, I'm ready to go.
What's going on, guys? We are the casting empire for the next podcast in our new interview studio. It's rented by Roman Long. He's going to be paying for all of this from now on. It's a very nice view. We were thinking about doing a backdrop behind us. But anyways, let's get to the point. What's going on, guys? It's Antoine and
Roman Long.
And this is the Gainz podcast. And thank you guys. I don't know why. I just want to thank everyone again to start off, every podcast, and appreciate everything that everyone's helped out and whatnot. In the beginning too, I want to shout out Reclaim Fitness, Mokina, Illinois. Check them out if you're in the south suburbs of Illinois. That's about 25 miles out of Chicago. So if you're coming to Chicago, if you want to stop by, very cool people, very awesome gym, very awesome people over there. So, yeah.
You should work out there sometime.
Yeah. Roman's going to come. Roman's going to come down.
Footage.
I usually am in there 2 to 3 times a week. So if you guys are coming by, let me know, and I could definitely help out. Or if you want to just talk to them, they're very cool people over there. But we want to do 2 parts of this podcast. We're going to finish out the programming piece and get those knocked out, as well as we're going to go over an example. It's like almost like think about it as a case study almost.
Yeah, we're going to use Antoine's current training block. You're going into weeks 7 and 8, right?
6 right now.
6, okay.
So 7 and 8 coming up, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah, so we've been programming like 2 to 4 weeks at a time. Just because we've been kind of like putting it together at work. So it's probably best to do at least 4 to 6 week blocks. I prefer to do 8 to 12 week, but it's just kind of like what we could do like with the time that we've had. But yeah, we'll cover that in a little bit. Yeah,
and also too, like, yeah, everything like we talk about, everything's really adjustable, easy, moving forward, as well as So to recap real quickly, part 1, if you haven't checked it out, we're now on Buzzsprout, Stitcher. Thankfully, like we talked about, we still haven't really done so much on. We're Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We'll be on there soon, right? I think that's a very easy thing to say. We'll be there soon. Just not.
Instruction.
Yeah, it's under the Spotify and Apple Music. They just can't afford us yet, but they'll come get us. But anyways,
People are gonna be like, "Yo, how much you make on this podcast?"
Absolutely $1 million. So we're on Buzzsprout, Stitcher, YouTube. Part 1 is on YouTube, Buzzsprout and Stitcher. So if you haven't checked it out, go ahead and check those out. But why don't we just we'll just go through we'll recap. We only got to part 4 on the programming principles. Number 4 of the principles, and that was individuality.
We went over progression and overload.
Yep, and then specificity. Did I say that right this time?
Good job.
So now we're going to run over 3 others, and then we're going to go over how to kind of apply it. Apply it in how we're applying it currently to my programming, and then kind of go from there. So if you want to go ahead and start. So we just ended off of overload last week as well. So now we're on adaptation.
Yeah, adaptation. So adaptation and recovery, I kind of see as going hand in hand. But adaptation has also been deemed like super compensation.
And by the way, recovery would be the next one. So Roman did jump ahead, but
sorry, folks.
but that's why he said recovery is kind of the same thing. But go ahead. Sorry, didn't want to keep you off track or whatnot.
Adaptation, also known as super compensation. So after a period of latency, or like you take a day off, a couple days off, you deload. So at the the end of like a 3 to 4 week training block, if you have like a 3-to-1 deload paradigm. You experience this effect of you're just stronger. You're able to exert like more into a lift. Part of it is that specific piece. So as you become more specific to a task, like squatting, for example, you become neuromuscularly more capable of completing that task, especially more efficiently, up to a degree or to a point.
Yeah.
but adaptation essentially says that you've created the stimulus in the muscle, you've broken down the muscle tissue, you've flushed out those like metabolites, etc. It's a fairly quick process, and now your body needs to start to rebuild, create different superstructures within the muscle. So adaptation is that effect afterwards, once it's started to create those additional like muscle spindles, etc. And you're able to do more, perform more, maybe run more, maybe exert more force into the bar, lift 5-10 pounds more than you were able to do a week before, a month before. That's what that process is. That's what adaptation is essentially.
So for an example, like he was talking about adaptation being like your brain path and everything else is gonna follow it. Sort of like if you do 4 sets of 8. I don't want to jump too much to my programming, but like 4 sets of 8 at bench, if you're going to start off with like 135, next week, maybe 140, or maybe even 137 and a half, depending on how far of a jump you're going to do, your body's going to adapt and keep growing on that, and it's going to recover, not to mean the jump to the next one, but you're going to keep adapting to it. So that's why a lot of times adaptation is really good when it comes to like more strength sports or even bodybuilding or anything when it comes to like running, because you're always going to get better at that, because your body will be like, all right, we've been doing 4 sets of 8, 5 sets of 8 for 5 weeks now. Everything's getting adjusted and adapted to the actual program, and you're going to make progress off that. So you could build on that. So yeah, I think that's like a good sum up.
And then like adaptation and like most of these principles flow into each other too, as you're probably starting to gather.
Everything we keep saying, it keeps going to the next one.
So like progressive overload demands that you continually add either weight. You essentially have to increase volume if your goal is hypertrophy or to like grow the muscle itself. So if I want to get bigger chest, I can't just bench 135 by 10. Each set, only do 4 sets, do it twice a week, and do that, for the next year and expect my chest to grow. It could, but it'd be fairly nominal, as opposed to if I slowly but steadily increase the weight as I could control the load, especially with good form. So adaptation is that process that once you have disturbed the muscle and you've gotten in the proper nutrition and proper sleep, your body is able to have that supercompensation or an effect greater than the prior stimulus. So it also now requires, so if you're going to continue to grow your chest, now you have to do 140 or 137 and a half.
Yeah. Question on that too. Sorry to interrupt, because I just got the question. So pretend like I would definitely get your opinion on this for everyone too as well. So just because my body's adapting in my program, and I'm adjusting to it, I'm adapting to it, does that mean 5 sets of 8, 4 sets of 8 is the best thing forever?
No, absolutely not. So
that's why, that's exactly, I want to make sure you go over, because I know you're really good about explaining that, but like, that's why I want to make sure you talk about that as well.
So,
sorry.
It's a good point, and you might have that same question. So if you have that question, this would be a good part to like focus on like very intently. You're like commuting to work or whatever. But so to like continue the stimulus, so like 4 sets of 8, if your goal is hypertrophy, you may want to throw in a strength block. So you might want to do like 4 to 6 week strength block where you lower the total volume and also the rep count. So you might want to increase the weight but lower the rep count. 1, to provide a different stimulus to the muscle. 2, to also like, 1, a lot of lifters, their goal will be like strength as well as hypertrophy. So like, especially if it's like bench, like, I'd say don't be an ego lifter, but also like it feels great when you can do more and you can see like, visual progress changes, but your body adapts and it becomes very efficient at certain movement patterns, and you have to change it up every once in a while. It's that, it's like that muscle confusion that people talk about. It's always been a concept I've really struggled with, because there's not this like higher level consciousness that each level of like muscle fiber has. I mean, it's possible, but that's like more for like a philosophical conversation.
Yeah.
But what it is the body has to adapt. It has to learn how to understand how it is being put into a situation, whether it's danger or whether it's like a comfortable situation, and be able to assess that quickly. So if it is like 4 sets by 8, if you're doing that consistently, your gains could slow based off of the concept that your body is adapting to that. It's learning that modality. So that's why some people have had excellent success in DUP or daily undulating periodization, because it does mix it up. I have my own gripes with it because I think it's a little bit too much and it gets away from skill-specific work. But that's something we can totally talk about another time. But if you find that you're running into some issues with programming, your bench won't go up, your squat won't go up, and you've stuck with the same rep count, same set count for a while, it may like provide prudent to decrease the rep count. Increase the set count. I would say like just go with one variable at a time. JPS. I can't think of what it stands for, but you can look them up on on Instagram. I think they're JPS_education, but they have some great infographics on their Instagram, and they talk about essentially taking different training modalities, training like set rep schemes, volume, and how you can take those all those variables and just make slight alterations to them. So I'd say, especially when you're like setting up an experiment, like what's gonna grow my chest the most, start with one variable at a time, and then if you're not having progress, maybe add in a second. But when you add in that second, know that now you have confounding variables that one could be playing over the other, under the other, etc.
# always be changing. Or just stay the same for a while, Well, because a lot of people, sorry to like kind of rant on that, but like a lot of people will be like, well, I've been doing 4 sets of 8 for like 4 weeks. Shouldn't I just do like 3 sets of 10, 2 sets of like, or 5 sets of 5? Well, maybe. Just depends if you're progressing. There is sometimes where like me, I mean, we would do what last time we ran the cycle with me, like there was like a 16 weeks of like almost the same amount of volume. It just like we were playing with the weights or maybe adding something here and there. So it's not really always have to be so monumental. Yeah. I think that's another thing too. Just keep it simple, keep it simple, stupid, or keep it, just kind of like how you learn, like, but there's always those little variables that you either might have to worry about or don't have to worry about it at all. But I think that should bring us to the next one.
There is a good, like, piece of like that you just said too, like there is a cost benefit or trade-off that you need to understand behind, like, so you were kind of referencing a novel stimulus. A novel stimulus may be like just what you need to kind of like push into that next level, but also understand that if you're following like all these Instagram models that like post their workouts every day, you might not get great success by doing a different workout every single workout, and that's why what I hope that like part of our mission or our goal with this podcast is to give you some practical tools that you can put into your own programming. There should be a degree of consistency, even if it's just like 4 to 6 weeks at a time. But if you're doing a different workout each time, how do you accurately measure success or progress?
Yeah, and what's funny is it's crazy. Like back in the day, like I would do that. I would go on like bodybuilding.com. Obviously Instagram wasn't that big, like, 4 or 5 years ago, but like there were in those times where I wasn't really measuring properly or like figuring out like what the goals were. I would like go to like Arnold's 5x5 program or Corey Gregory, blah, 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 and like just do them. But then again, you get to the point where it's like you keep hopping from one thing to another. You're not really making progress. Like it's cool to switch up things and like do strength blocks and stuff, but like, is it really right for you at that point? Like that's where I like, that's the only regret. I mean, I really don't regret it because I was having fun. Yeah. It was always fun, but like at that point it wasn't really measurable, and I'm at to the point in my life where it's like, if I can't see something or at least like try to see something towards my goals, then it shouldn't be in there. Yep. Like it's kind of like if you were working and like we're in sales, if like, if we're working on something and it's all fluff and there's really nothing to measure, Roman and I are never going to see success. Yeah. That should be the same thing about other people's jobs with like health and lifestyle. Like you have to be able to see it and have actual factors and variables towards it. So that's like another side rant on it, but
yeah, no, and very similar to Antoine's story. I used to do the same thing. Like I'd do like Steve Cook's workout or whoever the celebrity fitness of the week is, and I had like pretty good principles down, and I had weightlifted like for years in high school, and like kind of did like my own programming throughout college, but I got away from like the more technical side, and I became more like intuitive about it, but I didn't track anything, and it was just very hard to make progress because I might do bench once or twice a week, but then the next week I might do like focus on incline and then dumbbells and then I don't know, kettlebells and then push-ups.
Overall you probably might have got stronger. I mean, at that point of stage, sometimes when you're a newbie, sometimes that's necessary, but like overall, like if you want to keep it serious or if you want to see some progress, you're probably not going to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, as simple as that.
And there's no problem with having like a list of different workouts that you want to do. Maybe you can only do so many at a time, but maybe use that to get you excited for the next training block and say, hey, like I hit squats like really hard for the past 12 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm going to take like 6 weeks off of them and just focus on like glute barbell hip thrusts. Like that's totally fine if that's what you want to do, and that's something that gets you like, excited about training, being physical, growing muscle, getting stronger. Those are all healthy things. Those are all things that I believe we should all pursue if we have the ability to.
Yeah, so I think we should move on. That was adaptation. That was a pretty lengthy one, but I mean it's always good to have those conversations because that might open up some more questions, more responses, more comments on what you guys are thinking. So the next one would be recovery. I mean, that's honestly, if it wasn't for all the principles, in my opinion, I think that's one of the biggest factors of programming is recovering, how you're recovering, and then are you recovering in general. Like so I don't know if you want. What do you want to start off with? What's like the definition of recovering?
Yeah, so that one's pretty straight.
Squatting every day, right? Yeah,
squatting every day, as heavy as possible, working up to a 1 rep max. Consistently trying to beat your 1 rep max the day before.
I remember, I participated in squatting every day before.
Really? No, I haven't done that. I mean, we all do, right? When we sit down and whatnot.
Yeah, but besides like sitting down in your chair. But no, I actually physically, every time I was in the gym, I would do squat every day. I think it was like 20-something days.
Jesus.
I have no idea if I recovered. I don't think I made any progress. I might have had like some progress on my like quads and glutes, but like overall, no.
Yeah, so like what would be the issue with that?
I mean, you're just overloading depending on what the weight is, because the RPE, which is, the reps per perceived expenditure.
Pretty much. Yeah,
so like depending on where you're at with your weights and stuff, like you could be squatting every day and just tapping into that central nervous system and just ruining everything. So I think that's like the biggest problem. It's like, hey, you're just repeating the same movement, and you're not like you're not switching up, or you're not giving your time to give any of the main muscle groups anything to recover from.
Yeah. So like recovery would be the ability to
break down.
To
build up, break down.
Yeah, build back the muscle that you break down through overload, through progression, through taking in like individual differences between each lifter. So it's the ability to get back to like either homeostasis or back to a point where, because sometimes you go into the gym and you want to hit a session, but you still might be sore. The things that you have to look out for recovery-wise are to know, are you potentially like overreaching, and are you overreaching for a reason, and you have a planned deload, so you're trying to see if you can get that overreaching effect, or if you're overreaching and you might be doing too much and actually causing like reverse gains.
And also on that, like, just because like another factor to that would be like how you're feeling. When he was saying is, if there is muscles or some areas that are tighter than usual or more sore than usual, it's either A, maybe you're new to that, or B, maybe you need to take a step back and kind of look at things, because like you might not be recovering. But if you're like doing something for the first time, like this can go for two types of people. If you're starting in the gym for the first time, holy moly, you're gonna be sore no matter what.
Yeah.
I mean, I could tell you the first time.
And that's okay. That's normal.
Yeah, and you're gonna build up on that, but like, don't be scared of that because that one time. But see, the thing is, people always, in my opinion, this is the biggest thing. People always mistake that to being the one thing that's gonna make them be stronger.
Yeah.
Is soreness.
True. So soreness. I still don't know exactly what my feelings behind it, but like the synthesis of the information that like I've absorbed.
Yeah.
So I really see like there's two compelling individuals like out in the health and fitness space that talk about this. One is Eric Helms. Eric Helms does not believe, to the best of my understanding, sorry if I'm misinterpreting what you're saying, Doc, but my understanding of what Eric Helms, who's 3DMJ, he's a pro natural bodybuilder, a really cool guy. He does a Iron Culture podcast with Omar Isaf, a whole bunch of other stuff. Anyways, definitely check him out if you haven't yet. He pretty much does not believe that muscle soreness is indicative of a popular stimulus to the muscle. He sees it more as either a novel stimulus. So like Antoine was saying, like the first time you've done squats in a while, or first time you've done like weighted squats ever. That's why it's happening. Or two, it may be demonstrating like overreaching and not like a functional overreaching. So he doesn't believe, like from what he's seen in the research, that it's indicative of hypertrophic response or like a muscle gain response. Whereas on the flip side, Dr. Mike Israetel of Renaissance Periodization, also really cool guy. Check him out if you haven't yet. He believes that muscle soreness is indicative of a popular stimulus, and he has a caveat of saying, to what degree are you sore? So if you're sore the next day, like, great, you probably did like the perfect amount of per session volume for the that body part that's sore. If you're sore the day after, that could just be DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. That's also natural. Many lifters will experience that. I've experienced that much of my life. Have you ever experienced DOMS before?
All the time.
Yeah. So if you're sore the third day, you might have overreached a little bit. And the question to ask yourself is, are you in like a functional overreach, which we'll get into in like if we get into like an MRV, MEV, MAV conversation about volume landmarks. And you're planning a deload, or have you just simply overreached and you might be causing that like reverse Gainz effect? That's just a term that I made up. It's not like scientific at all.
It is.
But but essentially like what that means is you're doing too much. You're not properly recovering or getting back to that homeostasis of being able to do the lift, and you might be causing harm because your body might be continually trying to rebuild, so it's not able to exert as much force into the bar or whatever activity. So your run times, if you're running too much, your run times could go down, like your splits. You might be lifting less on the bench press or the squat. So that's actually a period to stop, analyze, and ask yourself if you may actually be doing too much and you need to drop your volume of that particular activity.
Yeah, and I want to add on that. I think there's multiple factors in recovering too, besides like just looking at your training itself. I think, like stress is a good one, that you can't recover, you're not eating enough, or you're eating the wrong stuff, you're not sleeping right, and as well as you're not like treating your body right as well. So yeah, and I know you guys want to have a healthy lifestyle, but if you're getting drunk Friday and Saturday night really heavily, that could still impact you. I won't go too much to it because we're not talking about recovering principles. Like we could probably spit off a whole podcast on that, but honestly, keep it to the basics. Like sleep 6.5 hours or more. I mean, obviously, a lot of people are doing full-time jobs, working out. You got other things to worry about. Eat enough. Eat well enough, try to get enough food in, obviously eat till you're hungry, not really, so much, but if you're dieting, obviously that's another recovery thing that you're probably going to run into because you're not going to recover as well as stress. Obviously, there's a lot of stressors in life, and you want to make sure, you're taking the right stress. Everything has its moments. Most of time, you're an adult, you have the choices in your world when it comes to finding those stresses, like if it's work or something, or if someone's in your life or family, you can always kind of choose to do something different. And obviously, like, your life choices are going to put you there too. Make sure you're walking enough, you're doing cardio, things like that to help make your muscles want to keep moving, because genetically, like, your body's going to want to keep moving. You want to get blood flow in there. And don't be scared to do something because you're so sore. Obviously, like, I think you should take the day off when it comes to, like, lifting, but, like, I want to keep this short. Like, I think getting blood flow into the muscle, walking, that will help pretty much get a lot of soreness out, especially when it comes to, like, your lower peripherals. Upper peripherals, it's a little bit, you're not gonna be like, oh, let me squeeze a 5-pound dumbbell and just get a blood flow in my biceps to get them unsore.
I do that.
Yeah, I mean, you could
that stuff.
Exactly, you could get the movement, you can get bands and stuff. You know what, you're at home you can recover a little bit better when it comes to that stuff. And then recovery also is like rolling out. I know you don't. I mean, there's always stuff around it to help either mentally recover or your body recover. I think you always got to take into effect. But I don't know if you. I mean, since we have like about 3 more minutes, do you want to talk about the last principle then?
Yeah. With that, like, whole, like, I do that, but I would be careful because you're technically adding additional volume when you do that.
Mm-hmm.
So
and you don't want to have to calculate that too.
Yeah,
I think that'd be a pain. Like, oh shit, I accidentally curled 5 pounds for 10 reps. I should put that in my training volume.
Yeah. One thing, like, in regards to recovery, hopefully my last thing on recovery. I like to do yoga every once in a while, just going through, like, some basic poses, some, like, cat-cow type deal, downward, upward facing dog, some various, like, warrior poses. I believe it's a good de-stressor for me, so it, like, reduces this overall stress in my life. And it puts the muscles in, like, different positions that they might not actively be in throughout the day. Yeah. So it might activate certain muscles that aren't activated, which might have, like, a compensatory effect, which can either, like, I believe that, like, overall it assists in the recovery process. Not that it speeds up recovery, but it makes you, like, feel a little bit better for a short period of time.
You rejuvenate it, like, you got energy again, like, doing all that other good stuff for it.
Yeah. But the last training principle that we wanted to cover is called reversibility.
Oh, by the way, just so you know, we're not going to be going over my programming today, too, by the way. Just to get that spoiler out the door.
We went a little overboard on the last 3 principles. But, reversibility, I don't think you need to, like, think about it too much. Mm-hmm. But it is important to, like, keep in the back of your mind, especially if maybe you endured some sort of, like, sports-related injury. Just know that if...
Or with age, too, probably.
Or age is possible. Yeah. I, like, for example, myself, like, I built a pretty respectable squat in high school, and then I stopped squatting heavy. Like, the max I would do is, like, 185 or 225 throughout all college, and I lost the ability, like, to work up into the threes, like, the mid to high 300 pound area. So that reversibility essentially says that, like, if you don't use it, you lose it. And it's not, like, quite that simple, because there actually are, like, there's potentially, like, certain sites that are set up, like, within your muscles so that you can regain that ability back depending on how long you've gone without, like, adding that stimulus. But I think the best way to, like, visualize it is if you're a track runner and you get sub 6 minute miles for, like, a 10K and you haven't run in 5 years, I wouldn't expect right off the bat to be able to run a sub 6 minute mile. That's just unrealistic. You might have to start back at 10 minute miles and work your way down from there. It's kind of, and sorry to interrupt. You're good. The last principle kind of ties into, like, the beginning of it too. Like, it's like a full spectrum, because if you think about it, like, if you start at, like, 10 minutes, you're almost going to the progression. You're going to have to look at specificity. See, couldn't even say it there. But you're going to have to go over those to build back up. So yeah. I think that's, like, a good way to kind of explain it, like a short summary, I guess. Yeah, and I think a good way to visualize how this, like, fits into, like, the overall periodization of your programming, especially if you're doing CrossFit work, I wouldn't put too much stock into it and get too much stress over it, because then you're taken away from your recovery.
Yeah.
No, but let's say you've been doing some like Olympic lifting, and you want to take like a little break from that to work more on like power lifts. I would still throw those weightlifting movements in, just like dial it down like pretty considerably. And we can touch on this when we go over some volume landmarks. But maintenance volume is relatively low for certain skills. But I would still practice them and still throw them in there so that you can avoid the reversibility effect. Cool.
Well, like we said, we're probably going to go over like programming a little bit more specifically as like a case study. But I think that's we talked a good amount on this part too, which is really good to like kind of, let y'all know the goods about it. But yeah, like I said in the beginning, we're on YouTube, Buzzsprout, Stitcher. Please go and like, comment, subscribe, ask us questions, follow our Instagram accounts. Everything will be in the bio, so I don't want to keep explaining it. I mean, we're not going to tell you Roman's handle every time, but it will be in the bios of everything. And thank you so much for watching.
Take care.
Keep the gains continuing.
Keep them rolling, baby.
Keep them rolling, baby.